When I was a kid, I had an imagination that was truly one of a kind. Truly one of a kind. I loved to play make-believe, and my favorite thing to pretend to be was an adult. I kid you not. I loved doing things like checking the mail because in my mind, every time an adult received a letter in the mail, it was a check. The postal workers were just Santa's elves for adults, delivering money daily on a door-to-door basis. When I was lucky enough to swindle my brothers or my cousins into playing make-believe with me, my favorite thing to play was school. I was a teacher and I had the works. I had a chalkboard, I had lesson plans, and I even had assignments which may or may not have had to be completed before anyone could go outside or watch TV. Now, I think we've worked through this by now, but guys, in the event that there are any unresolved issues, consider this my public apology. When I wasn't so lucky, or when they were tired of being tortured by me, I was okay with playing by myself. On Saturday mornings, I would get up, get dressed, grab my Cabbage Patch doll, get her dressed, and then march my way downstairs and play grocery shopping in our kitchen. I'd grab canned goods of different shapes and sizes and bag them up and then head outside to load them in the trunk of my dad's 1996 Chevy Corsica. I'd throw my baby in the back seat, and then I'd hop in the front seat and pretend to drive to pick up my make-believe husband from his make-believe job, and then we'd go to our make-believe house. Hours. I go in and out, up and down, and entertain myself doing this for hours. Life was so simple back then. Fast forward to a few years ago, a huge fast forward, and I'm working in education and realizing that life isn't quite that simple. I'm having a hard time paying all of my bills. Speaking of which, I'm now avoiding checking the mail because I hardly ever receive any money. But I am sure to find one of three things without fail: bills, Bed Bath & Beyond coupons, because even they know I can't afford to shop there, and a toss-up in between wedding and baby shower invitations. I also hate grocery shopping, and I've been in enough near-death car accidents where I could take or leave driving. And to top it all off, I was still playing make-believe, spending way too much time waiting in the gray area with guys, convincing myself that things were more than they actually were. I remember crying myself to sleep on the night of my 28th birthday. I had just found out that the guy that I had been seeing, that he not only had been seeing someone else, but had been in a relationship the entire time. That was the tip of the iceberg. I was settling, and I was upset because the life that I had been settling for, it was starting to crumble, and I had no control. This was not the plan. How did I get here? My expectations. By definition, expectation is the belief that someone will or should accomplish something. From childhood, I had an expectation of how my life would go. When I entered my 20s, I had an expectation that by the time I turned 30, I would be married to my college sweetheart, have my dream job and car, and live a lavish life with my girls by my side. At this point, I was only 2 years away from 30, and I was single with no prospects. I was working in a field that I swore I'd stay away from, working part-time at J. Crew so I could actually afford to wear their clothes, and grieving the loss of friendships that I thought would last forever. For months, I went through waves of depression. I was disappointed. I was insecure and overwhelmed because I had an expectation that life would be different. You see, I was constantly comparing my life timeline to my social media timeline, always falling short to my peers who were constantly posting statuses of engagements, hashtag it's a fiance, buying homes, hashtag major moves, getting dream jobs, hashtag boss life, and having babies, hashtag baby makes 3. But then something happened and everything changed. In July of that year, just 4 months after my 28th birthday, Sandra Bland lost her life. We were the same age. We were the same age. I remember reading article after article about how full of life she was and how excited she was to finally start a new position, not knowing that she would never make it to her start date in August. Chills. I had chills thinking about the fact that she had never gotten married, had never turned 30, had never made it into her career, and she never would. That year, at 28, I learned the significance of being grateful. You see, the thing about expectation is that sometimes it distracts us from paying attention to the things that are actually important. On New Year's Eve of 2015, I made a decision that I would not enter the year feeling any other emotion but gratitude. I decided to start a gratitude jar. Every day, I would jot down a note of thanks and drop it into a jar. On the outside of that jar, I had a scripture from Psalm 103 that read, "May I never forget the good things that he does for me. He fills my life with good things." Day after day, for 365 days, I was able to practically see that scripture come to life. Gratitude became the chaser that helped to soothe the sting of disappointment. On my 29th birthday, I decided to stop regretting the experiences that I had from my 20s. And I just wanted to look for the lessons. I decided to write a list, a very long list, of lessons that I had learned in my 20s. Some of my hardest moments taught me some of my most cherished lessons. It was in my 20s that I learned that you either let go or prepare to be dragged. I learned that loyalty to anyone should never come at the cost of betrayal to myself. I learned to leave people better than I found them. I learned that self-love is essential and self-care is a spiritual act. I learned to bloom wherever I'm planted. And one of my least favorite professors taught me one of my most cherished lessons, Sankofa. To go back and fetch it. It's the idea that there's wisdom in learning from your past in order to move forward with your future. As I got closer and closer to 30, I became excited because this was going to be a fresh start. I had learned so many lessons in my 20s that I was ready to hop right on into my 30s. On the day after my 30th birthday, I wrote a prayer thanking God for another year of life. As I was writing, a scripture from Luke 5 came to mind. Unless a seed falls down to the ground and dies, it remains just a single seed. That scripture really focuses on the fact that we have to let go of our idea of life in order to experience the fullness that happens only when we surrender. I vowed that for the year of 30, I would take a 52-week challenge of practicing gratitude and faith. I became hopeful because it was clear that the more that I let go of my expectations and just focused on managing what I had been trusted with, more would come my way. In fact, better would come my way. For the past 24 weeks, I found inspiration in everything from the Bible to Beyoncé. Each week, I create a hashtag of my own to remind myself that there are no timelines or comparison. This life was created specifically for me, both the good and the bad times. There was week 2, when I started to feel down about the dating scene, and I had to remind myself, #know yourself, know your worth. There was week 7, when I decided to step out on faith and present an idea that I had been sitting on since high school. #grind till I own it. Thank you, Queen Bee. There was week 11, when the plans for that idea fell through, and I had to pray to God for peace, to accept the things that I cannot change, and courage to change the things that I can. #serenity prayer. There was week 19, when I realized that God had delivered the answer to my prayers in a guy, someone who was easygoing and completely unfazed by my adorable ways. And he is #easy like Sunday morning. There was week 22, when I started to question if I was qualified or even adult enough to stand up here on this stage. Don't just talk the talk. Don't get me wrong. I have moments where I question if I'm doing this whole thing right. With 30 comes a whole new series of struggles. I literally have days where I sit at work and I question, is there a gray area between winning and losing? I don't think I'm losing, but this doesn't quite feel like winning. In all of this, I'm learning what it means to be vulnerable. I'm choosing to be honest about the fact that I'm doing the best that I can with what I have. I choose to be open about my insecurities, my failures, disappointments, and my constant need to reset my expectations. So much so that vulnerability and that surrender has brought me here today with you all, and the opportunity to challenge you all to just give up. Let's all give up our idea of how life should have gone or should have been, and surrender to the life that's waiting for us. As we all try to figure this adulting thing out, let's be grateful for the things that we have experienced, hopeful for what's yet to come, and vulnerable about the hiccups in between. And with that, I leave you guys in the middle of week 25 with #Sankofa. Thank you.